Time to steal.
I see you.
Oh crap.
Boom.
Oof.
Let's start here, and welcome, and we're going to be talking about two cases today, both which change the history of the death penalty and who can receive it. And this first case is called Furman versus Georgia, and first we're going to talk about the incident. One night in the house of an unsuspecting man named William Mick, I looked that up on Google Translate, it is Mick, was burglarized, or attempted to be burglarized, by a man named William Henry Furman, a black man. That will come into play later, the black part, but right now just don't worry about that. It's not really important. I just thought it should be discussed because it changes a little bit later on. Anyways, one member of this family, William Mick, because it was his family in his house, woke up early to find Furman attempting to burglarize him. And Furman tried to escape. In Furman's attempt to escape, there are two versions that Furman says. The first one is what he says at first is that Furman shot the gun attempting to escape and falls, and he shot blindly into the air. The second one is that his gun discharged accidentally. Whilst Furman attempted to escape, he fell onto the gun and it discharged. Now, this incident happened on August 11, 1967, and he was sentenced to death on September 26, 1968. A few years later, that people began to think that the death penalty wasn't like the best idea and that it was too much. So they argued on January 17, 1972, and that this was wrong, and decided June 29, 1972, quite a few months later. Now, the question of all this was, does imposing and carrying out the death penalty in this particular case a violation of the cruel and unusual punishment of the Due Process Clause of the Eighth Amendment? 14th Amendment comes up in a minute, but I would just like to say that this is a part of the Eighth Amendment. So it talks about the Eighth Amendment, which is the one we're talking about in the class, and does the cruel and unusual punishment block the death penalty? Because death penalty is quite a bit. Now, I'm going to explain the thing about the 14th Amendment in a second, right after I answer the question and see what happens. On the first day, June 29th, 1972, the court decided that yes, it was too much and that it should be taken out. It was a 5-4, so it was very split with only one person to spare, and they wrote a 200-page curiam to act out their decision because there was a lot to it. There's a lot to go behind. And that's where it leads into a little bit of the 14th Amendment, which isn't really the major part of this project, but I would like to speak about it quickly. In the 14th Amendment, it says that all people should be treated equal, no matter who they are, sex, race, and stuff, in cases and whatnot. And it's believed that since Furman was black, he was unnecessarily biased against. So it was a very confusing case, but they ultimately decided yes, with a little, still confusion, which is later to be confirmed completely that yes, it would severely matter. And that's all for the Furman versus Georgia case. See you in 10 seconds after another brief, funny little skit to get you off all the legalese for a moment. That's all.
And now some funny stock photos. Gentle cat. Don't drink while driving. Praise our chicken overlords. I seriously don't even know what this is.
Alright, the final case we're going to talk about is not Furman versus Georgia. I forgot to get rid of that. Anyways, it's Greg versus Georgia. This was actually a series of 5 different cases across multiple states, but we're just going to be talking about this specific one. Now, on the date of November 21st, 1973, only not that long after the Furman case, which had told us that it was not good to use the death penalty, he was convicted of murdering Fred Edward Simmons and Bob. Greg was convicted of murdering Fred Edward Simmons and Bob Durwood Moore in order to rob them. He also admitted to having shot them, robbing them, and stealing their car. Now, this all happened in a course of only a few hours because of the fact that he was actually a hitchhiker and had hitchhiked along with another man. After that, he was eventually arrested and put on trial. Now, the first time, due to the Furman case, it was said that he would not have the death penalty for killing them. But eventually, he went back to court for a slight change because the court believed that he deserved a higher thing. And this is where the death penalty finally gets its closure that it needs. Now, they argued this on March 31st, 1976, and was finally decided on July 2nd, 1976. And the question is the same as the last one. Does imposing and carrying out the death penalty in certain cases a violation of the cruel and unusual part of the 8th Amendment? Now, the 14th Amendment wasn't really brought much into question in this one due to the fact that the man was white and there was less bias. But they figured out with the answer. This is straight off of Wikipedia. Thank you so much, Wikipedia. But this is the same on most websites. Anyways, and every case has to meet these two criteria. The scheme must provide objective criteria to direct and limit the death sentence discretion. The objectiveness of these criteria must in turn be ensured to appellate review of all death sentences. So they have to meet a certain criteria that they can limit death sentencing. And the second one is that the scheme must allow the senator, whether judge or jury, to take into account the character and the record of the individual defendant, which they have to take in the past and exactly who this person is before they automatically put the death penalty, which led to a bunch of stuff like whether mentally ill people should get it, and a lot of things similar to that, in fact. And this changed the entire history of how we see the death penalty today. Now, remember I said this was among 5 different cases across the entire Americas? Well, actually, every single one of these cases met both criteria. And so forth, there was never really a name that I could find for this specific test. There wasn't a specific test for it. It's just that these had to meet both of these criteria. And that's all there is to it. I mean, sure, you could argue more about it, but it seems pretty cut and straight. So, yeah, that's all about that. Have a nice day, and have a nice tomorrow. Always remember to stay lit.